May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be ever mindful of thee, O Lord, my strength and my salvation. Amen. Please be seated. So what do you think Jesus was going on about when he said this? If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Now, I can understand if he said, if any of you does not come and hate my evil Aunt Carol. That's easy. I mean, I've got members of my family who I can pick this out and it works just fine. But what is he saying? Hate your mother, hate your father, hate your wife, hate your children, and only then can you come to Christ. What's he going on about? That makes no sense. Didn't Jesus say in Mark's Gospel, honor thy father and thy mother, fifth commandment? You remember the movie, don't you? Charlton Heston, honor thy father and thy mother. He told the Pharisees, you can't get out of not supporting your parents. You can't plead, oh, I have to give my money to the church, therefore I don't have anything to take care of my elderly parents. That doesn't cut it, Jesus said. In his letter to Timothy, the Apostle Paul writes, 1 Timothy chapter 4, that if you do not support your family, you are worse than the heathens. So how does all this tie together with if you basically abandon your family, you're worse than a heathen. If you don't honor your father and your mother, you go to hell. If you don't love your parents and support them in their old age, you're doing an evil thing, but at the same time you're supposed to hate them. What's going on here? What we have here is the problem that some of you who may be of a Baptist background do not realize that Jesus did not speak English. And this is being translated over the course of time, and what words mean then, they may not mean now. And the situation and circumstances in which Jesus lived are very different from the world in which we live today. And I wonder what I want to talk to you about today is what this passage means. And at the end of my sermon, I hope you come away with this central meaning, that there is nothing between you and Christ, not the priest, not your mother, not your family, not your color, not your race, but only you and God. With Jesus Christ as your only mediator and advocate. So how do I get from here to there? I'm going to spend the next, if you're lucky, 35 minutes. You can start going like this after a few while. If I've made my point, you get it, we can move on. I've reached that stage of life where the children are gone. Laura is in Los Angeles. Claudia is in Seattle. My parents are not in the community anymore. So Susan and I are empty nesters, and boy, it's great. Isn't that wonderful? And I have discovered something. It doesn't get any cheaper. See, for about 25, 30 years, I'd come home from work and I'd say, what's for dinner? And if it was Monday, I knew it was this. If it was Tuesday, I knew it was that. Today, with no children at home, I come home from dinner. And Susan says, put your coat back on. We're going out. And so we are going out and seeing the town, spending our children's inheritance on restaurants. The other day, we went to this place just down the hill, World Fusion, and we're going through the menu, and Susan says, you get this, you get the Thai chicken, and I'll get the curry chicken. I said, okay. I'm a good husband. I eat what I'm told. She lays out my clothing in the morning. She tells me to eat in restaurants. That's, folks, after the success of 35 years of marriage. Do what you're told. And Susan said, you know, if you get the curry chicken, that comes with broccoli. Mine comes with asparagus. I hate asparagus. And I love broccoli, so we'll switch that. Now, does Susan mean when she says she hates asparagus, that she hates asparagus? Asparagus is the cause of all the crime and misery in her life, and by God's grace, asparagus will be destroyed. Is that what hate means when she hates asparagus? Or does she love asparagus because does she love broccoli because only in broccoli will she find joy and life eternal and peace and hope and grace? No, she prefers one to the other. She hates the one and loves the other. She doesn't hate and love. She prefers this to that. This is how the Bible uses the word hate in this circumstance. Put yourself in the mindset of the disciples in 2,000 years ago. Their whole worldview is infused with the Old Testament. And the Old Testament again and again talks about things that God loves and God hates, that people love and they hate. And that's how it's translated into English, but the Hebrew word is different. The Greek word is different because the Greeks and the Hebrews, they had lots of words that we translate into one. In Deuteronomy chapter 11, Moses is talking about men who take more than one wife. He thinks it's a bad idea. It's not going to work, but because of your brokenness, you can still do this. It's not forbidden. But the problem is that you will love one wife and hate the other. And you will have the loved wife and the hated wife. Now, what does that mean? That you basically are South Florida, you trade in every 10, 15 years for a new model of wife and you just keep the old one around? No. What it's saying is that if you marry two women and you tell yourself that you will love them equally and treat them both the same, you're not going to be able to do it because you will favor one and not favor the other. And Moses is saying in Deuteronomy, this is going to be a problem of hating and loving. Not that you hate one person and love the other more, but you will favor one more than the other. The prophet Malachi uses that same hate-love relationship. Jesus says you must hate your life. Really? How can you hate your life to be able to get it? Makes no sense. But it does if you understand this to mean choice and preference. In the world in which Jesus was living, people's identity was tribal. It was familial. Even in the Arab world today, we have people known by Abu so-and-so. There was a famous terrorist, Abu Nadal. Who is Abu Nadal? It means son of Nadal. We don't even know man's name. We just know he's the son of somebody famous. And in this time and in this place, you didn't have an individual identity. You are a member of a tribe, a clan. I'm of the tribe of Levi. I'm of the Levite. I'm this, I'm that. You didn't have an identity other than your greater family. It seemed for the first 35 years of my life, I was known as Cynthia's child. My mother's name's Cynthia, and I'd be introduced to people. Oh, this is Cynthia's child, George. Did George have an identity? Yes, as Cynthia's child. This is the world in which the Jews are living. You have a familial identity. And the head of the family is the paterfamilias. In Muslim worlds today, a woman cannot be independent. She needs her father, her husband, or if she has neither, her brother or an uncle to be her guardian outside the world, to represent her, because she is an appendage of a man. This is the world. This is the structure that the Jews lived in. And Jesus is saying, you must hate that. You must break free from those structures to understand that what is central is me, is God. Susan and I recently celebrated an anniversary. I don't remember which one.
34.
34. Thank you very much, Ruby. Susan's in Sunday school right now, so she won't know unless somebody tells her or somebody with her.
Or she hears it in the speakers.
And in third, we were married when we were 22, and we're completely different people. I mean, you can still sell the pictures. Oh, yes, that's him way before that happened. But we're different people. As a young man, who was the center of my life and my world? It was my wife, Susan. You know, we were married with the old prayer book, and one of the lines, with this ring I thee wed, with this body I thee worship. Now, that's an old-fashioned way of saying I will honor you, but you know what I did? What did I do? I really did worship her. Susan could look at me cross-eyed And it was the closest thing that could make me cry. The world couldn't hurt me. I was young, I was strong, I was powerful, everything was at my feet. But if my wife wasn't happy, it destroyed me. There was a time, up until very close, that my children could do the same. Because what had I done? I had placed them at the center of my happiness. And I had made them an idol. I had made them a god. And so when the God was angry, when the God was sad, when the God was anything other than perfect, I was broken by that. And why I was broken was because I did not worship God. I worshiped a person. Susan did the same to me. And it shows the strength of her character because I'm pretty good at saying a stupid thing. It was not a wise thing the other day to point out that her dress matched the pattern on the sofa in the living room. For some reason, that was not considered the nice thing to say. And it took me several years, up until my early 30s, not to answer a question truthfully, does this dress make me look fat? I thought she wanted to know. And if I said, oh baby, I don't think stripes like that work for you, I could destroy her life and day. Why? Because she thrived off of my approval, and I thrived on her approval. And thank God we got through that, because guess what, folks? You're going to be let down. You can be betrayed. In my years as a priest, the worst grief and anguish I've seen doesn't come around death. It comes around betrayal. When a husband betrays a wife, when a child or a parent betrays someone, that's the deepest, most agonizing pain that I've encountered in people. And I've experienced it myself. And part of it comes from making that person, there was a long time, I don't remember, but at a certain point I figured out my father wasn't magic. Because for a long time as a small boy, my father, nothing was impossible. My father was like Yul Brynner, let it be written, let it be done, and it was done. And I don't know when I finally figured out that he was a human being, and sometimes what he wanted didn't happen. And that crushed me. What is Jesus telling us here? Is he telling us to hate our mother, our father? Is he telling us to despise them? Is he telling us that we need to be some sort of superior monk or nun and have no relationships and live in a hole and only think of Jesus and stare at our navel? No, he's not. What he's telling us is to make him the center of our universe and our life. And here's the funny thing. When I made God the center of my life, replacing him with my wife, with my children, what did it do to my relationship to my wife and my children? It made it even better. Because I saw them and loved them, not only for the love that I had, but in them I saw God's love. And God's love for me, God's love for them just lifted. So today, I can continue, I will always, because I'm congenitally retarded, my wife tells me, say the wrong thing at the wrong time. But it will not cause her grief. It's not because she's just used to it, oh, he's going to say the wrong thing. But rather, she knows and sees me through the eyes of love given to her by Jesus Christ. I never want to betray my wife, and I pray God that I never do. But I will do the dumb thing. I will say the wrong thing. I will make a wrong choice. And for Susan, if God is central in her life, that will not harm her. It'll irritate her, but irritation lasts but a moment. But the pain of betrayal, it's still there if you are betrayed. But you can live with it and bear it and see God as God sees that other person. When Jesus Christ tells us, don't be like some developer who starts a project and goes bust and runs out of money. He's not talking about building projects or anything like that. What he's saying is that make sure you've got all your cash up front. Put your trust in a bank that's not going to bust or in a scheme that's not going to pop out. Put your trust in me. Put your trust in the living God, Jesus Christ. That's not a betrayal of your family, of your mother, your father, your children, your wife, your husband. That actually takes that relationship to a higher, stronger, more powerful level. Jesus, the focus of your life. And then you will survive the storms. None of us are perfect, except for Susan. None of us are perfect. We will let each other down. But if our hope and our faith and our trust is in Christ, we can survive and go forward and prosper. This is not about hatred. This is not about asparagus versus broccoli. This is about preferring Christ, making him the center of your life. Choose Jesus. Choose love. Choose life.